Perfect.
And we are live. Welcome to the Political Orphans. My name is Nico Lagan, and I am the in house conservative. To my left is Rob Ambrose, our token lefty, and together we speak about what's trending in the news. Our goal is simple. We want to show you that it is possible for a lefty and a righty to not only get along, but to agree because common sense has no political affiliations. Today on the show, we got a special guest. I don't know if you recognize him, but we have the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier. How are you doing, Maxime?
Great. Thank you very much, Nico and Rob, for having me at your show. I'm very pleased to be here.
Well, thanks for coming out. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
we
for.
appreciate you taking the time. I'm sure you're a very busy man these days.
Thank you.
So, before we get started, I always want to ask the listeners, so the people out there, I know you guys are still joining and you're going to continue joining, but the question is at the bottom. So, I want to ask you directly, please give us some comments. That's why we do it live. We want to interact with you. So, the question we have for you today, should Maxime Bernier allowed to participate in the upcoming federal election debates? That's the question we have for you. Make sure to answer it. Make sure to interact with us, and we will choose one of you guys' question. So ask us questions that you want us to ask Maxime, and we will pick one from you to ask him. So Rob, up to you, brother.
Yeah, it looks like I'm on deck to go first. First of all, thanks a lot for coming, Maxime. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
So as Nico had mentioned, we are the political conservatives, and the format of the show is a sane lefty and a sane righty get together to discuss the political issues of the day. We try to find common ground where we can and respectfully disagree where we cannot. So as the resident lefty, that will be the context for my questions. Now, I might be probably a little bit of a different lefty than what you might be thinking. I represent a faction of the left that I believe has split off from the political left. It's not a very well-defined block yet, but I think within the next 10, 20 years, it will define progressive politics. Broadly speaking, just for the sake of time, simplified, we are people we've been progressive liberals our entire lives. However, we are currently disgusted with the state of the political left. We do agree with the broad positions of the left. However, we diverge strongly on four main issues. One, the left's embrace of radical gender ideology, the left's abandonment of free speech as a core value, identity politics and the way it has proliferated throughout all corners of the left, and immigration. Now, in preparation for this conversation with you, I have polled my followers. I've got a fairly large following of people who I would say mostly are alt-left. Broadly speaking, these people are not willing to vote for liberal parties anymore until they collectively pull their heads out of their asses, shall we say. I have polled people as to what their intentions are for the next election. Many of us are willing to vote strategically for right-wing parties, things that a lot of us would have considered unthinkable in the recent past. The consensus does seem to be Pierre Poilievre at this time. And what I'd like to ask you today is to explain to us why we're wrong. My mind is not made up. I'm a persuadable voter. Why should a traditional left-leaning voter vote for you over Pierre Poilievre? Or I guess any voter of any type, but I'm personally curious about people from the left.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's easy for me to answer that question because as you may know, the People's Party is like other populist political parties in Europe and in America, like Trump in USA. So that being said, we are focusing on a moratorium on immigration. That's very important. And you just said in the beginning that you agree with that immigration it's a big issue. For Pierre Poilievre, it is not. Pierre Poilievre still wants to have 250,000 foreigners, immigrants coming to our country every year, plus fake international students and and temporary foreign workers. So for us, we need to have a pause. We need to have a moratorium for a couple of years, just to fix everything that is wrong in our country because of mass immigration. Actually, as you know, mass immigration is, very hurting Canadians for having a house. It's very difficult to buy a new house, and all these people
Housing
who are
prices.
yeah, and all these people who are coming here, they need a roof. So we have a huge housing crisis, and the way to fix it, it's supply and demand. You stop the demand, and that is the only real solution. But it is not the solution for Polyev. And also, it's important because it's a question of identity as a country.
Hmm.
When you have all these people coming here and they don't speak English or French, it's very hard for them to integrate into our society. So we need to change that. We need to be sure that, we will promote Canadian identity,
Hmm.
and we will repeal the Multiculturalism Act. So Polyev is okay and is pandering to ethnic communities. Like you said in the beginning, he is doing identity politics. If you don't like that, don't vote for Polyev or the Liberals. They're doing that. For me, I won't do that. I'm speaking for Canadians, and I'm putting a Canadian first, and that's not a empty slogan. This is the reality. So it's a big and huge difference there. And I can go on also on the fact that Pierre Poilievre, as supposed to be a conservative, will balance the budget or fix the budget, like he likes to say. But he won't tell us, how many years. He said another day, maybe 4 years. You can fix the budget, you can balance the budget, because deficits are future taxes. So
Hmm.
we need to balance the budget to be sure to give more money in the pockets of Canadians. And as you said, you're maybe a leftist. You want to help your people first. And with mass immigration, that's not happening. The federal government is paying for them to stay in a hotel,
Yep.
paying for dental care. They have more support than Canadian citizens. So actually, and we cannot afford that. So that's why we are speaking about deportation of all illegals that are in Canada. And we don't know the number. It's between 25,000 to 500,000. We need to put our resources there to find them and to deport them. We want our legislation to be respected. Polyev is not speaking about that. And I must add also the foreign international students. Polyev said that they must be able to come here in Canada, studying and working in Canada. I'm thinking about the fake Indian students in our country. They're coming here to study. Why will they have the right to work? We are against that. We want to radically reduce the number of international students, and that program must not be a program to finance universities or fake colleges. So that's a different position with Polyev, but I will stop there. There's a lot of other differences, but for a leftist, I think it would be the most interesting differences.
Thanks.
So
Thank you for that.
I'm a conservative. I'm even a Christian conservative, which is not something that you see very often in Canada, but I do spend a lot of my time in the US. I'm in Alabama right now, so I'm used to a lot more right-leaning policies than what we'll probably ever see in Canada. And one of the things that I always do is I criticize my leaders. I don't care that you're a liberal, that you're a conservative. If you're doing something that I disagree with, I will voice my opinion, and that's all the content that I do online. And one of the complaints I always get is when I criticize the conservatives, especially Pierre Poilievre, and I always get the same comment. And that's from conservatives. They always tell me that your content is causing the conservatives to lose votes, and they're going to go vote liberal. And I like the fact that you're laughing at this, because that's kind of the same reaction that I get. But the question to you is this: what do you think of people saying that voting for the PPC is going to help the Liberals get reelected?
When they're saying that, what they're saying, in fact, is Pierre Poilievre is a weak leader because he's not able to have support. It's not my fault. It's Poilievre is a fake conservative. If you're a conservative, vote for conservative ideas, and our ideas are conservatives, family values. And you said that you're a Christian. Poilievre doesn't want to reopen the abortion debate. As you know, here in Canada, for Christian, it's very important. You can have a murder, an abortion, couple of hours before giving birth. That's illegal in every Western country. Canada must be part of the other Western countries and having a legislation on abortion. We don't have any legislation on abortion. We want to be able to have this debate, reopen that debate. And with us, we have pro-life people that are running with us and pro-choice people. And I'm telling them, you'll have a right to table a bill on abortion, and that will be a free vote for everybody. So Poilievre won't speak about that. It's not important to him. And about that argument about splitting the vote, every 9 years in Canada, look at the history. You have a government after 9 years, there are scandals, people are fed up, and they are voting for the Liberals. So you had a conservative 9 years, Liberal 9 years, conservative 9 years. It's always the same. And some people may say, oh, this time is very different because Mark Carney is very popular. It is not Trudeau anymore. And maybe because of you, Bernier, people, Poilievre, won't be able to win the election. So, like I said, if he's a weak leader, I'm not the one to blame. But that being said, if you look at the history of our country, you had Brian Mulroney for 9 years, and after that scandal, and they put as a leader Kim Campbell, the first lady, the first woman leader of a big national political party. She went up in the polls after Mulroney resigned, but the election came and Jean Chrétien was able to win. So it's the same today. They have a savior that is Mark Carney. I call him, the globalist in chief, and he's more popular right now in the polls. But people will vote against the government, against the Liberal, and you can say that Poilievre will be able to win if you look at the history of our country. But if he wins, you need to have our voice over there. And that's why I'm telling to people, there's no risk when you vote for the People's Party. We will be your insurance policy that Poilievre is a real conservative. We will support Poilievre when he'll be a real conservative, and we will shame him when he won't. We will be sure that Poilievre is going in the right direction, and we'll push him in the right direction. So if you like our ideas and our real conservative free markets ideas, support us. If you have more chances to have what you want if you vote for what you want. So, vote for us, and that's a win-win. You're going to be able to have a political party that will speak on your behalf. And the more vote we'll have, the more support and the more influential we will be as a political party. So there's no risk. I'm telling people, vote in line with your ideas, vote your conscience, and you'll see we're going to be able to win that cultural war that is happening in Western countries right now.
It's interesting that that debate kind of reminds me of 2016 when it was on the left, though. It was people were complaining that people voting for the Green Party and Jill Stein, I believe her name was, had caused, it was vote splitting, and that caused Donald Trump to win. And even, back then my take was, well, it's Hillary's fault for not getting, she didn't make the case for people to vote for her. I mean, it's not, no one's obligated. I think a lot of people are turned off by the idea that any party is entitled to your vote. And I guess that's, that works on both sides of the aisle. So for my next question, obviously one big issue facing Canadians right now is is the threat of tariffs hanging over our heads, and sort of everything Donald Trump's doing down there. Now, I've heard, there are some people. We did a lot of research for this interview, and I've heard a lot of people compare you to the Canadian Donald Trump. I guess because the outsider status or what have you. My question to you: if you were able to pull off a political upset at the next election, and you are prime minister, how would you deal with Trump generally, and also how would you deal with the tariffs specifically?
Yeah, starting by the tariffs, it's very sad that Poilievre, Trudeau, Carney, Freeland, Jack Meat, and all these establishment leaders are, saying that we need to impose our own tariffs also. So I won't do that. I will do the opposite. The 25% tariffs that Trump said he will impose, and he gave us a month, and he was very clear. He said, I want to impose that to you because you're not serious about the security of your borders. You're not fighting fentanyl. You're not fighting drug traffickers. And it's important for us. It's important for the national security of our citizens in the US. I want you to do that and prove me that you'll do something. And maybe in a month that I won't impose these tariffs. So it's a little bit bizarre that we have, the president of the United States that is, having at heart the future and the security of Canadians, because they're a threat also for the national security of our own country here in Canada. So after 9 years, Trudeau did nothing about that. And now you have President Trump that is very concerned for the security of Canadians and is saying to our government, please act for the benefit of your own citizens. And so I'm very, very happy with that. And now Trudeau is acting. After that, he said, I will impose another 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel. So what he wants for that, and also his Secretary of State said the same thing. What we want is to reopen the free trade agreement that we have with Canada. That was supposed to start in 2026, the renegotiation of the free trade agreement. But Trump wants to do that now. So instead of telling Trump, if you do that, I will impose also 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. But actually, if the federal government is doing that, the federal government will tax Canadians. That will be Canadians who will pay for that. So Trudeau and Poilievre and Carney are saying, yes, we like this country. We like this country so much that we will impose tariff 25% to Canadians. That's crazy. We are paying a lot of taxes right now. So instead of doing that, just take the phone, call President Trump, and tell him that you are ready to reopen the free trade agreement right now, having the discussion. And Trump wants to put on the table the supply management, the dairy cartel, dairy, poultry, and milk, when we are paying twice the price if you compare that with the prices in the US. And, it would be good for Canadian consumers if we do that, if we abolish that cartel. It would be good for dairy producers because they will be able to export their good milk and to export their products in other countries. So let's put that on the table. But Poilievre and the Liberals are saying, no, we don't want to put the dairy cartel because we're so afraid. They're a very good lobby and a very influential lobby in Ottawa. They're afraid that they don't want to work for Canadians. And also Trump said, I want to put the auto parts also, the automobile sector also on the table. So let's do that. And we will be able to have a good deal, not only for the US, but for Canada also. So these tariffs are crazy. That's not responsible. The US is 10 times bigger than us. We won't win a trade war. And Trump said also, if you impose 25% tariff on your people, on Canadians, I will double my tariff. So, it's crazy. Let's sit down with him. And I believe that if we do that, we'll have a very good free trade agreement. But I'm the only national political leader who is speaking like that. So that's why I'm saying Poilievre, Trudeau, they're the same on the big issues for this country. So that's why if you want to have a real change and bold reforms in our country, the People's Party is there for you.
You know, this, I'm happy to hear you say this, because this is pretty much the speech that, what's her name? The premier of Alberta was also saying. Because I was, as soon as I saw, Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre say that we should put tariffs, I'm like, you guys really don't understand how economy works. This is an emotional response. And Daniel Smith went the complete opposite way. Just, let's pick up the phone. Let's deal with this diplomatically, because at the end of the day, you know the old expression, when the US is sick, Canada coughs. We are very dependent
We're
on
not going to win that
free
war.
trade.
I mean,
No.
Be honest here, it's not going to happen.
And you always want to negotiate from a place of power. And in this situation, we're not. So I'm happy to hear you say that, because from a somebody that spends a lot of time in the US, to me, what Trump is doing, he's trying to help Americans. And he also seems to care about Canadians. Whatever the news media are telling us, he actually seems to care for Canadians as well. So I'm going to give him credit for that. But there's also something else that he does that I absolutely love, and I want to see what you think about this. But one of the things I create a lot of content around is the Doge department. It is having an entity that is not government ran, that will investigate government spending and high net worth politicians. Do you think that this is something Canada should do? Should we copy the US for the Doge department?
But it is a good idea. It is a good idea because they took that from us. You know, I said that in 2020. We are in 2025. I said that in 2020 that in Canada we must have a department of downsizing the government. Yes, so it's a good idea because right now in Canada, in the US, you have a big fat government that is, that is doing everything and tell us to do everything or not doing everything. That big government is in our lives, and you need to give more freedom to people. And by doing that, it's cutting the government, having more freedom, cutting taxes. So that's our proposal. And we said, we must cut, all the subsidies that the federal government is giving to businesses. We must cut, the money that the federal government is giving to the media, the mainstream media. We can save $2 billion. Foreign aid, we can save $10 billion. So yes, we need to have a department of downsizing the government in Canada. And the first question that that we must ask is if a function can be done better by the private sector than by the government. If the private sector can do better, just downsize that, give that to the private sector. We must look also at what the federal government is doing right now with activities and function is doing. Is it in line with our constitution? If it's not in line with our constitution, if it's not under the jurisdiction of the federal government, that function must go to provinces. So yes, let's have a big rethink of the federal government, a smaller government that will, cut a lot of expenses and being able to lower taxes to every single Canadian.
One of the things, one of the parts you didn't answer, and I just want to make sure that you do, is the politicians with a high net worth. Like you look at a Jagmeet Singh, for example, that's estimated, I've seen anywhere from a few millions to almost $70 million. You got a Trudeau that is worth millions of dollars. You got even a Pierre Poilievre's estimated to have a 25 million net worth, and he's a career politician. I want to know personally, how do those guys get that money? Like it needs to be investigated, in my opinion. And I think that most Canadians, no matter if they're lefties or righties, will agree with this. Do you think that it matters? Should politicians be investigated for their net worth?
Absolutely. We must know where their money is coming from, because for Pierre Poilievre, his money is supposed to come only from the government as his salary as a politician. And you're right, he's a career politician. He started to be, he was elected for the first time at 24 years old, never had a real job in the private sector. That was the same thing for Andrew Scheer before that. So, and he's supposed to have a lot of money. I don't know the details, but, like in the US, when you are running to be the president of the United States, all your finances must be out there, your income, your tax receipt, all that. So that must be the same. In Canada, you don't have that. We must have the details about what Poliev and Carney, how much money do they own, and what was their salary of the last year. So Canadian must be able to look at it and to judge if they, if it's logical that the way that they were able to make money.
And this is something that, what I said at the beginning, Nico and I, obviously we try to find common ground. And this is one where we both strongly agree. Political corruption should not be a partisan issue. And anyone, I think, who disagrees with that or pushes back on people trying to root it out, maybe they should be at the top of the list for people who should be investigated. So the next question I want to ask you, while we were doing our research for this interview, someone from your team said something to Nico that I thought was really, really interesting. They said there's a large or significant number of your supporters who are coming to you coming to the PPC from the Green Party and the NDP. And I found that, personally fascinating. As I said at the beginning of the show, one of my main political theses is that there is a massive political dislocation going on across all spectrums, and the left and right political spectrum doesn't always it's not necessarily the best way to understand politics today, the way that it might have been over the last few decades. And the thing I just want to ask you is, if you could sort of explain that phenomenon, where are these people coming from and what is their main appeal?
Yeah, I like your question, actually. You're right about that. I was in BC a couple of months ago, and I did a rally, and I was there also to meet our candidates. And I was able to meet for the first time two of our young candidates. And they said that they were coming from the Green Party. And actually, they said that at the last election, they were working with Elizabeth May, and they were working to help us to be elected. And I said, oh my God. Okay. I said, first, did you read our platform? I'm very surprised that you've been approved by our executive director. So can I know what is happening and why you are with us right now? And they said, Maxime, yes, we've read your platform. Yes, we know that you don't want to be part of the Paris Accord and sending all that money to fight climate change. And we agree with that because we agree that there's no climate emergency. We were with Elizabeth May to be sure to keep the environment clean, to have a cleaner environment, clearer lakes. And that was the most important for us. But we also understand that the leftist policies coming from the Green Party of Canada, that was anti-wealth. And we understand that you must create wealth. And before, I want everybody to have, for example, a green car with batteries, and it's very expensive. If I want them to have that, first, they must be able to have the money to buy it. So if they have more money, they will be able to think about the environment also and do everything to save the environment. Same thing for solar panels. If I want people to buy that, they're very expensive. Instead of using oil, that would be great. But we must work on the economy first to be sure that Canadians will have more money. And I like your platform on the economy. Everybody would be richer. And with that, it would be easier for everybody to take care of the environment. So that was their thinking, and that's a good one. And I was very pleased to have them in my team. And yes, you're right. We have people who are coming from the left and are saying, you know what, these more important issues and immigration and real, real fight for the environment, it's important for us. And we know that the People's Party is part of their platform. The money that we'll save on climate change, we will put that money to, in Montreal, they are staying, putting their sewage in the St. Lawrence River. We are in 2025. We must do better than that. So let's work for the environment. And the climate is always changing and will always change.
Yeah, I think, well, we did a show yesterday about political tribalism, and I think that sort of way of thinking, people are really starting to question it. This idea that I have to believe this just because that's my tribe, I have to go along with this. And I think, I really think there's a major political disruption going on, a dislocation, if you will. And I believe that the politicians who can recognize that today are going to be very well placed to take advantage of that over the next 5, 10, 15 years in across the entire West. I think it's a phenomenon that's happening everywhere.
Yeah, you have a point there, Rob. And I must say that in Canada, it can be a little bit slower because of our electoral system. Look in UK, Nigel Farage, the Reform Party, the New Party, their platform is the same as our platform, the People's Party here. And they were able to have 15% of the vote last year at the last general election. And with that, he was able to elect 6 candidates. So because of our system, first past the post, it's a little bit more difficult for us to have a person elected. And our goal is to have somebody elected as soon as possible, but also to increase our percentage of the vote. We had 5% at the last election. If we can double that to 10%, we may be able at this election to have our first candidate elected. But yes, in Europe, you have a populist political party that is growing, and they're growing very fast because they have some proportionality in their electoral system. For example, we had 5% of the vote in Canada at the last election, but we didn't have 5% of the members of parliament. It would be great if we can have a kind of proportionality in our electoral system. But anyway, we are fighting in that system. And that's why I'm saying to our people, we are there for the long term. It's always the same platform at every election. We don't do any polling and focus group. And we are doing politics based on ideas and conviction. And we believe that, our time will come. Like on immigration, for example, when I started to speak about fewer immigrants in 2019, I was supposed to be a racist in English Canada because I wanted to have that discussion. And now, you have about 65% of the population who are saying enough is enough. It would be very difficult to say that 65% of the population is racist. They are not. We want to preserve this country. And it's normal to have a discussion about immigration. The level of immigrants, in Western countries now, they are having that discussion. And so that's important. And we are, if we are speaking about something that is not that popular today, it's okay. We believe that the more we will speak about it, the more popular it will become. So we are not following the public opinion because we believe that the public opinion has been manipulated by the radical leftist media. And we need to be out there with our ideas. And the more we speak with passion and conviction about our ideas, the more support we will have.
One of the things that I find, like, I met you in Montreal back in, I think, 2017 when you were running for the Conservative Party. And I started paying attention to what you were doing. But one of the things as a conservative, and I'm not saying as Conservative Party of Canada, as a traditional conservative person, one of the things that I've always appreciated from you is that you stood up during the COVID lockdowns. You are the only politician that I can name right now that never flip-flopped on the issue. From the get-go, you said that this was wrong. I met you at one of the protests, and if I remember correctly, you even got arrested for being at one of those protests. So the question is, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's probably a lot of the people that follow you that like the PPC, that like what your party stands for, because you stood up. You didn't use the Freedom Trucker as a way to gain momentum, like the Freedom Trucker convoy. You didn't use that as a way to become a popular politician. You stood up to the COVID lockdowns way prior to that. So why did it matter? And do you think that this is one of the reasons why so many people move from being a conservative to your platform, to your party?
Yes, maybe. Actually, you're right. Why? I was the first one because, as you may know, when we created that party, we created the People's Party based on four principles: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. So, for me, individual freedom, when you had the government that was imposing draconian authoritarian measures on us, and not respecting our Charter of Rights, that was normal for me to be out there and speak for freedom of choice with informed consent. And that's what I did. And yes, I did participated in a lot of protests at that time. But also the question that I had at that time is why? Why were you the only one at that time? And the answer is very simple. It's because the federal provincial government use fear and propaganda to control the population, and that was very efficient. So if you're a politician elected in the opposition, your goal is to be in government. And when you see in the polls that more than 60% of the population are okay with lockdowns and stay-at-home orders, you want to have their support so you don't speak against that. And that's why you didn't have any opposition in Ottawa and at the provincial level about, against these lockdowns and draconian measures. They were following the public opinion that was manipulated by the leftist media, by the one narrative, because of the censorship that they were doing to the other point of view. So for us, we did a couple of research at that time, and we said, I don't like that. Let's be out there. And yes, you're right. I was arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail for a non-crime after a political discussion in a park outside in Manitoba. So I did fight for that. And when the Freedom Convoy happened, I was there in Ottawa, but I was not there just to show up and do a photo op like Polyev did at the end of the Freedom Convoy, because he knew at that time that the population was changing and coming on our side. We were able to win the public opinion, to change the public opinion. It took us 2 years to do it, but we did it. And when that happened, Polyev came and had only a photo op with a trucker just to say that I'm for freedom, freedom, freedom. But he was nowhere to be seen when we needed him and all these other politicians.
I've got a question. I just wanted to follow up on one of your answers earlier about immigration. As I had said, I do represent a sort of breakaway political bloc on the left that is it has serious concerns with how the left is treating immigration right now. As you said, you were racist back then for even discussing it. And as a lefty, that is one of the things that I absolutely firmly believe the left really needs to get over. I would say people on the alt left, it isn't even that they have a hard opinion or a universal opinion exactly on where immigration should be. But one thing we are united in is that we need to be able to talk about it. It is not racist to discuss immigration policy. It has nothing to do with the color of their skin. It is, if you bring a large number of bodies, regardless of their color, the color of their skin, there's going to tax the resources, going to tax infrastructure. It's going to put a huge strain on our universal health care. It's going to, as you said, drive prices through the roof. And so I would say that most people on the alt left, we are broadly supportive of immigration. We think it has a place in Canada. But one thing, we need to be able to talk about it without being called racist. And that's, you had said in your answer earlier that you were going to declare a brief moratorium for a couple of years, sort of until we can figure things out, get the right policy. Longer term, what is your take on immigration? Do you agree that immigration, it does have value if done correctly?
Yes, for sure. it was done correctly a couple of years ago. We were, if you want somebody to come here in our country, you want that person to be successful. And to
100%.
be successful, you want them to first being able to have a job. And to be able to have a job, that person will need at least to speak English or French.
Hmm.
There's our two official languages. We were asking them to be able to speak English or French before. We changed the criteria, and now that's not the case anymore. So let's fix our immigration system, coming back with a system that will first of all, we will bring people that we need people,
Hmm.
because now it's immigration. The last couple of years was a cheap labor for big businesses.
Yep.
And so I don't want that, because I want Canadians. If a business is not able to pay, to have a Canadian to work for them, it's maybe because first they don't, give a good salary. If they increase their salary, maybe they will have more people who will apply. And if they don't have people who apply after increasing their salary, the solution will be to maybe put more money to gain more productivity and robotic and all that. You'll be able to be more productive, but that must be the last resort to try to go out and find foreigners to do a job. That was the case in the past. That was difficult for businesses to find a foreigner to do the job, because we were asking them to look in Canada, not only having only one ad in a newspaper and telling us, oh, I wasn't able to find a Canadian. No, we must be serious about that. We must fix the system. We must be sure that the person will come here. They will have an interview, a face-to-face interview. We want to be sure that they share our values. Men
Absolutely.
and women are equal before the law. We want to be sure that they will have a job, and we want to be sure that they will be able to integrate into our society. And we must also repeal the Multiculturalism Act and promote our own culture, history, and not promoting other culture.
On that same idea, if you will, this is the last question, and I'm hoping that I can squeeze one more to ask you. As per Statistic Canada, 8.7 million Canadians, or 23% of the population, is struggling with affording daily necessities. Do you think that we should stop sending so much money overseas and finally take care of Canadians instead?
Absolutely. It's part of our platform since the creation of the party for the last 6 years. We must abolish foreign aid. We can save $10 billion over there. Bring that money home. And for Canadians, yes, it's immoral when you have a leader, your prime minister, that is putting the interests of foreigners, more than the interests of his own people, Canadians, with mass immigration and foreign aid. That is what Prime Minister Trudeau was doing. So yes, ending foreign aid, but also at the same time to be sure that all the subsidies that we're giving to big businesses, also, it's unfair. Use that money to help Canadians for sure. And the best way to do that is to balance the budget. Doing all these cuts the first year, we balance the budget, and after that, we lower taxes for everybody.
Love your answer. I know that you have to go at 45. We have 2 minutes left. I wanted to give you an opportunity. Is there something that you want to say to the people listening? There's almost 2,000 people listening to you speaking right now. So is there something you want to tell them?
Yes, I want to tell them, if they want to know more about the People's Party, they can go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. They can click on platform and read our platform. We have 21 policies. It's only 2 pages each policy. It will take you 5 minutes. If you're interested in the economy, we have a policy on that. In immigration, we have 2 pages on that. Read that. If you like that, I hope that you will support us. And during the next election, that may be in March, as soon as this March, in a couple of weeks from now. So that being said, and if you don't like what you're reading, don't vote for us, because we won't pander, we won't change. We are saying always the same thing. and you will waste your vote if you vote for us thinking that we will change our ideas. We won't. So, but if you like what we are saying, because of the mainstream media, that we are canceled there, you don't hesitate, to speak to your friends and your family about our ideas, and that will help us. And also, if you are there and a podcaster, a YouTuber that may be interested to have me doing an interview, I'll be pleased. My campaign will be, yes, on the ground with people, but also very active on social media. And for me, if you have only 200 followers, that's 200 people that I'm able to speak with and reach. So that's that. If you want to know more, go on the website, People's Party of Canada, and follow me on Twitter.
And for the podcaster YouTubers out there, I can tell you that that's actually true. We reached out to Maxime's team. They responded. We never met before this. Here we are. We just recorded for 45 minutes. So he's right. He is reachable and you can get access to him. So if you feel that you need to, please do, because he's not scared to answer questions. We didn't tell him what the questions were, and I appreciate your honesty and your candor.
Willingness to come on live. Not a lot of politicians would do that.
Nope.
We definitely appreciate that.
And next time, maybe what we can do, we can take questions from your audience. You can write with my people, and that can be just a Q&A with Maxime, and I'll be pleased to do that.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely. Maxime, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being here today. I know you have other things to do than just look at our bald-headed heads, so we will let you go. But before we do, I will use this chance to talk to the people that are out there. Thank you for being on the show. We're not done. Once Maxime leaves, we will continue, but I want to thank every single one of you out there. I also want to say, if you liked the way this went, follow us at the Poly Orphans on X, on YouTube.
Talk about this every day.
You can follow Rob at Rob_the Builder on X. And if you like my French accent, follow me everywhere. I'm on every single social media out there.
He's had a few fans.
Real Nico Lagan. Thank you for being here. And Maxime, thank you very much for being here, and have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day also. Bye-bye.
Bye. Here we are. I will just make sure that Maxime, as far as I know, is still recording right now. So if you don't mind, I know Maxime's in the back. I'm hiding him, but he's still there. If you don't mind holding there for a minute until it's done. But thanks again for being there. We wanted to talk about other things, but I want to put you to the challenge, Mr. Lefty. What do you think of that? What did you think of this interview?
I thought he did really well. I think, one thing that I keep harping on about is, on the left, we have to get away from this idea that just because we don't agree with someone, we should never listen to them. It's wrong, but it's just a toxic worldview. And what happens is we create a bubble for ourselves, an echo chamber where we only hear the things that we like to hear, and we could become more and more disconnected from the society at large that we live in. There's a lot of liberal ideas right now that are just taken as orthodoxy, as if everyone else believes this stuff. And broadly speaking, society does not. But we don't know it on the left because we will not allow ourselves to listen. And frankly, that's just a sign that deep down, and maybe not even all that deep, we're not that confident in our positions, our opinions. You know what I mean? If you have to remove altering or differing opinions from from hearing them, that usually is a sign that you're afraid of some uncomfortable truths, or you can't defend your positions and you know it. If you firmly believe something, you should relish the opportunity to speak to differing opinions, because you will believe that you can persuade them, or at least persuade other people listening. And so to hear the media talk about Maxime, the guy is the next Trump, he's in a negative, he's a racist, he's a this and that. I didn't get any of that from that conversation whatsoever. You may not agree with his policies. One thing he talked about immigration. we need to make sure that immigrants share our values. That isn't racist. And when I say our values, I mean tolerance. We live in a pluralistic society. That means respect for women. That means understanding that there are some people who do not live like you, homosexuals, for example, and you have to allow them to do so. A lot of people are coming from cultures that are extremely homophobic and extremely misogynistic. I'm not even just talking about, don't like women or whatever. I'm talking about literally believe women are property, are second-class citizens, and we do not want those people in our society. But on the left, if you dare bring something like that up, that there should be a values test, well, you're a racist. Well, no, it isn't that at all. It's ridiculous. And like I said, I talked about this schism or this splinter group of the left. For lack of a better term, I call it the alt left. I think it comprises up to 30 to 40% of the traditional or of the current political left, which means leftist parties, liberal parties, cannot win unless they recognize this group and appeal to them. So what they, this is the reason why Kamala lost. I believe she had 7 million less votes than Joe Biden. Donald Trump had about the same in 2020. So where did those 7 million votes go? I would argue that this is the alt left who is sitting out the election because they simply they differ so much in just absolutely fundamental issues that they cannot vote for the left. And the left needs to recognize that these liberals exist. And until they do, they will not win. They're unelectable for a generation. So
be careful, man. You're starting to sound like a righty, man. I think that's what Jason from NY Varsity Sports is saying. Whoa, easy, Nico. Hey, Jason, it's not even me speaking right now. This is Rob. I don't know if you're watching the camera, but this ain't me, man. This was 100% Rob. Careful, bro. You're starting to sound like a conservative. Be careful.
Well,
be careful, brother.
It's sad that does sound like the case, but because it shouldn't be. I broadly agree, and I believe the alt-left broadly agrees with left-wing positions on things like abortion, gun control, role of government, social safety net, fiscal policy, what have you. It is, those 4 issues. I had it as 3, but like you said this morning, that the free speech one, I think I would add 2, because that is a core liberal value. You see, we're going to talk, I hope we talk about it more on the show tomorrow, what's going on in Europe. People are going to jail for fucking tweets. Yep. You know what I mean? Like that is not right. And they're not, but we're going to read some of these tweets. They are not incitement to violence.
But at the same time, this happened in Canada too. Like this is the thing. We don't even need to go to the UK to do that. Like I've interviewed a pastor from Alberta that's been arrested multiple times for protesting, for reading the Bible outside of public places, like public libraries, where they were holding, those transgender hour. So they have a bunch of kids and you have people in drag reading stories to kids. Like this is completely messed up. This should never happen, especially not funded by my taxpayers' money.
It's funny how the drag queens never go to old age homes. It's always the case. Why is that?
It's almost like there's an agenda behind it. Huh? But the point is that I know this is what opened up your eyes to the woke side of the left.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to hear you speak like this, because to me, you're just speaking common sense. And, like we always say on this show, common sense has no political affiliations. That should be the basis for any political system.
The whole show use common sense down to that one sentence.
But 80%, right? As per study, we will agree on about 80% of things. Yet we always agree, we always spend our time debating the 80 instead of understanding that we do agree on about 80% of things.
Yep.
And the next 20%, you know what? We can debate politely. We can put our ideas forward and have that conversation. And this is what I appreciated from Maxime. And this is a challenge for the people out there, because we're just under 2,200 people on the podcast right now that are listening to us live, that listen to Maxime Bernier. And I challenge people like Pierre Poliev to come on this show to actually have this conversation.
We don't have agenda. We're just trying to get.
I'm not there to make anybody look stupid, but at the same time, Maxime Bernier, you got to give him credit. He answered hard questions that I doubt Pierre Poliev would have the balls to answer. That's my challenge to you. And I'm doing it very politely, but at the same time, this is a challenge because I don't think you have it in you to do it, but I would welcome you to do so, because if 2,200 people can show up on a brand new podcast, imagine the amount of people out there that want to know what your real policies are. And this, like Maxime Bernier or not, he had the balls to show up and answer questions that weren't scripted.
Yep.
We were still modifying our questions 20 minutes before
the show.
So there was no questions that were sent to him. He had an idea of the topics we wanted to talk about, but outside of that, this is how it should be. This is how politicians should be. They should be ready to answer questions from the public. Both you and I are Canadians. We will vote in the next election. We are the citizens that need answers to our questions.
Yep.
So again, Pierre Poilievre or any party leader or even politicians on the left, on the right, even Americans, I want you guys on. I want to be able to have that conversation. I want to be able to ask you hard questions that the people are wondering. I want you politicians out there to have the balls to come on this show, answer hard questions, and convince the people that are like Rob and I, somewhere in the middle, that don't have political affiliations. This is why the name of the podcast is called The Political Orphans, because we don't know where we fit.
We've been left.
I'm not what? We're orphans. Like, where do I fit? And I know that you guys, and you know what, to the people out there that are listening, not only thank you for being here and listening to us, but do you feel like a political orphans? Like, do you feel that you have a party right now? It doesn't matter that you're in Canada, in the US, that you're overseas in Europe. Do you feel that you belong to a party? Is there a party out there that speaks for you, that you agree with their values? Because at the end of the day, you're the citizen and they work for us. Political parties are our employees. We are the employers. So tell us, do you have a party that you affiliate with? Or are you like Rob and I? You don't fucking know where you stand because you're a political orphan.
Out in the wilderness. One thing, you know, I discussed this sort of schism in the left. You could call this group the alt left. One thing that all these people strongly identify with is the phrase, "I didn't leave the left left me." If you identify with that, you're probably part of this group that I'm talking about. This idea, I know I didn't change. It's the left that changed. My values and my, you know, are the same as I always were. And when I apply my values now to the way the political left is currently situated, they do not match up. You know, I've been a progressive, a liberal my whole life. Maybe we're just talking semantics. I don't think I'll ever identify as a conservative. So my job here is to reform the left. It is to raise awareness, because I think a society needs a sane left and a sane right to be able to be healthy. We need to get rid of the crazies and the nutcases, the 10% on either extreme, the far left and the far right. And the rest of us just need to stop, you know, like the media would have us believe, like you said, that 80-20 thing. We're going to actually agree on 80% of the issues. And yet the media will have us believe that we're mortal enemies. If you're a conservative versus a liberal, that we have to hate each other, that we have to disagree. And of course, those 20% things we can disagree respectfully, but the focus should not be on our differences. Like, we actually broadly agree, whether you're a liberal or a conservative, we're all going to have more or less the same values. We all want a better future for our children. We all want a society where our families feel safe and happy and thrive. We may disagree on how to get there, but that's a pretty good place to start.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's, you know, again, I'm going to speak directly to the people that are listening. This is the whole point. And not only are we political orphans, but I'm pretty sure it's clear by now that Rob and I don't agree on everything. Rob is more of if you split down the middle, Rob is left of middle, I'm right of middle. But the point in the matter is that it is still possible for us to get along. It is still possible for us to have these type of conversations. And that's what we do 5 times a week. We actually bring up the news. We look at it from a lefty's perspective, from a more conservative perspective. We try to find where there's common sense or there's common ground. And then we disagree on the 20% in a way that is a healthy debate. Because this is the type. And this is why the question today, and I ran out of time because I could have asked Maxime Bernier 20 other questions, but this is why I wanted the question that you see running below is, should Maxime Bernier be allowed to debate during the next federal election? And I believe that he should. He absolutely should, because
every leader of every major political party should.
But I think in the sense of a Maxime Bernier, it's even more needed, because he is completely right of any political party right now. Because if you think about it this way, the Green NDP are the most extreme left, liberals are left, conservative are just a bit right of liberals, and then you have a guy like Maxime Bernier, which stands somewhere in the middle. He's more of a libertarian like I am.
Yeah, that's how I see him.
And I spend a lot of my time in the US. I'm in Alabama right now, but I spend half my time in Montreal, half my time in Alabama. And I can tell you, he is not far right. The only reason he's considered far right, or guys like me are considered far right, is because the left has gone so far left that anything right of left is considered extreme. But what was extreme? We normally finish at 12 and we'll call it a day, but I thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. I hope you guys appreciate this. I hope you guys like this show. I invite you to follow us.
We're on
at the Pulley Orphans on X. So Pulley Orphans on X on YouTube. To the left of me is Rob_the Builder. I'm Real Nico Lagan, so you can find me everywhere. You can find Rob on X. But the point is, we do lives every day to have those conversations. And we want to be able to interact with you guys, especially if you don't agree. If you agree, it's cool. But like Rob said earlier, we're not looking for an echo chamber.
Yeah.
We want to have those hard conversations. We want to have those discussions with you guys. So if that speaks to you, join us, follow us, come on the lives. We will have more politicians. This was the first one, but it ain't the last one. I can guarantee you that. And if there's subjects you want us to talk about or you want to discuss, let us know. Yeah. We're here to interact with you guys. That's why we do it live. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was just saying one thing that the basic premise for this show was this idea that there's a whole lot of us out there. There's a lot of people who do not know where they fit, and maybe they're trying to figure it out and they need a place to go. We're trying to build a community here. And that is why we do it live. We are listening to you guys all the time. We're going to respond to you live on air. Send us topics you want us to talk about. We're the host, but this is really meant to be a community for like-minded people, because we've got this idea that there's a whole lot of us out there and who are just sick of politics as usual. And whatever the politics of tomorrow are going to be, they're going to be a lot different than they have been over the last couple of decades. And we want to have a role in shaping that, not just me and Nico, but me, Nico, and all of you guys. So we really appreciate you guys coming out. If you like this content, this is the exact same shit we talk about every day.
And Andrew Skinner, I'm going to leave on that comment because this is fucking hilarious. Anything right of Karl Marx is far right now.
Basically, and it's insane, right? It shouldn't be. The problem is, and like I said, I keep referring to this sort of splinter group from the left. A lot of the people that are in it don't even know they're in it yet. I can't tell you how many people I've talked about this specifically, and as I'm talking, they're like, "Oh shit, I completely agree with you." They just need permission to know that it's okay to say these things. They need permission to say, it is okay that I don't really think men should be in women's sports or male rapists should be placed in female prisons. And I don't think it's racist to discuss immigration policy, to discuss numbers and how many we have. We need to get away from that whole thing. One thing I really respected about Maxime and the way he answered was when he was like, if you don't agree with me, don't vote for me. He was like, because we're not going to change. Like, where's that in the modern political spectrum? Right, left, it seems like these guys are changing their opinions every day. We need some principles. Even if I don't agree with your principles, I will respect that you have them, because then I know what I'm voting for. And yeah, hopefully, mainstream politicians sort of take note that the politics of yesteryear are dead and buried. I don't think they realize it yet, but communities like this one, podcasts like this one, are exactly what's needed to show them that people are sick of it.
Amen, brother. Couldn't agree with you more. And Canada First, we will interact with you. I will always make sure to put the comments so that everybody can see them. So interact with us and we'll interact with you. Respect goes both ways.
Today we're getting a lot of comments. Because we had Maxime.
Yep.
We're trying to respond to it all.
But here it is. So you're absolutely right. This is the whole point. I've been doing lives for a long time, for a few years. There's nothing like interacting with people. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you for your comment. And we will always make sure to do our best. Because as Rob is saying, sometimes it's just comment after comment after comment. So it's very hard for us to keep track, especially when we're running an interview. But thank you to all of you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for all the people that actually commented. There's another one that came in just as I'm trying to close it out. So I'll give credit here.
Exactly. Stuck in the middle. You sound like a political orphan. You sound exactly like, you belong here. Welcome.
Welcome. And hopefully we see you again. And I want you guys, again, I'm going to shamelessly plug the podcast one more time. At the Poly Orphans on X, on YouTube. You can follow Baldy to my left at Rob_the Builder, and Frenchie here at Real Nico Lagan on every social media out there. On that note, guys, thanks for being here, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Peace.